ingredients you will need for this dish are kelp noodles, and I purchased mine off of Amazon. Some olive oil, grape tomatoes, the spinach is optional, some basil, feta cheese, and the garlic is also optional. We're gonna preheat our oven to 400 degrees. First, I want to get my kelp noodles ready. And I knew I had to try this dish just because it was different and I had never heard of kelp noodles before. When you first open them, they don't really have a strong fishy smell. Like, they definitely smell like, something from the sea, but it's not a very strong fishy smell at all. But they are stiff. So we're going to take some warm water and submerge them in the water. I'm going to have to add a little bit more water to mine because they weren't completely submerged. In the recipe, she shows you how to boil them to get them ready. But when I searched other ways to prepare them, I went with this idea better. And you just use lemon juice and baking soda to basically soften up the noodles and neutralize the flavor. I started with about a teaspoon or two of lemon juice. And then I'm going to also use about 2 teaspoons of baking soda. At least starting off, I end up adding more. I know a juicer would have made this easier, but at the time I didn't have a juicer. Before anybody comments, I know I could have squeezed the lemon into the cup, blah, blah, blah. I didn't, so we're good. So as I said before, I used about a teaspoon or 2 of baking soda starting off. But as I started agitating the noodles in the water, I just felt like they could be getting a little bit more softer than they were getting. So I just added a little bit more baking soda. They recommend letting the noodles sit until they're about the consistency of glass noodles. After you've let them sit, you want to rinse them off multiple times in just some cool water just to make sure all the baking soda, all the lemon juice, all of that is rinsed off of them. So after rinsing them, this is how they look, and they look to me exactly like Asian glass noodles. And I tasted a few before I started cooking, and they really don't taste like anything. All right, on to the second part of our dish. You want to get your tomatoes, whether you use grape or cherry, and just put them in your glass dish. I ended up using 1.5 cartons of tomatoes, but if I remake it, I probably only use 1, just because the more the tomatoes cook, I'm sure, cooks out there already know that the tomatoes are gonna release more of the juice, and it can make your dish, more watery than you want it to be. Then you take you a teaspoon of olive oil, drizzle it all over your tomatoes, and just season them how you want to season like your dish or your tomatoes. I did just season of salt, pepper, some Italian seasoning. Now the Italian seasoning was really good on those. Now the garlic cloves, that's on you. You don't have to do garlic cloves. I've seen a few dishes that used them, so I put them in mine. And then you just want to stir everything together, stir it around so everything gets coated with that olive oil. Now you just want to get your feta cheese block and put it in the middle of your tomatoes. And after that's in the middle, you just get another teaspoon of olive oil and drizzle it over the cheese. I didn't, but you could also sprinkle a little more seasoning on top of your cheese after you do the olive oil. Okay, now it's time to put it in the oven, and you'll cook it in the oven for about 30 minutes or until you start to see the cheese start to melt some and the tomatoes start to burst open. But before I took mine out, I put it on broil for a few minutes just to char the top of the cheese and some of the tomatoes, but that's optional. All right, so it's time for it to come out of the oven. Then you just want to get a fork and start mashing up your cheese and your tomatoes. And how chunky you want your dish to be is determined by how much you mush up your tomatoes. And definitely be careful because the tomato juice can get everywhere while you're mushing up your tomatoes and your cheese. So now that you have everything mushed how you want it, go ahead and start stirring your cheese and your tomatoes together. Depending on how many tomatoes you use, your mixture might not be as watery as mine. Now you just want to add some of your fresh basil leaves. And then just stir your basil leaves around in your mixture. And now it's time to add your noodles. You could use 1 or 2 forks just to mix those noodles in your mixture. You don't have to use the kelp noodles for this dish. I've seen people use regular noodles, the miracle noodles, just any kind of noodles that you want to use. I just know a lot of people are liking the kelp noodles right now just because they're low carb, low calorie, fat free, and they have a lot of vitamins in them. I put a little uncooked spinach in mine before I ate it. I probably wouldn't do it again because it didn't really need it, but I definitely enjoyed making this dish. It was quick, it was easy, and I really did like the flavor of it. So if you try it, especially if you use the kelp noodles, just leave me a comment below.